Yeah. I'm a tiny boy. As I pull up in the middle of the sun. I pass my car. I go to come out on Fridays on. It's even my cousin name. What's life and I'm carried one. And I'm a guy job. You know, on your highway. You are the highway. Umaka highway. Shalom the highway. Oh, I'm the highway. To be on the highway. And the trouble, whatever, highway. Look on the highway.
Yes, so welcome on board today, my wonderful viewers, subscribers, followers, commenters, likers, etc. and the rest of all. Thank you very much for being there. Today we'll be learning some interesting aspect again. As you are watching it on the screen, you will wonder how I do the scratch and how I drop the song. I'm going to be giving you some key details that you need. First, before you go into a well professional scratch using the virtual DJ software, you first need to understand that scratching is divided into different components. There are different types of scratch. How you do it on the turntables, I'll tell you how you translate it to your virtual DJ skills. So you first need to understand that every music is made up of different elements, sounds, voices, and a host of other things. And your ability to also count, even though you are doing the counting, you have to be conscious of the sound, how you play around with the sound. It's an art. DJ is actually an art. You display your ability, not forgetting the fact that you are entertaining the audience. So before we go into it, let's have a feel of how it looks like. This beating is actually going on. Just watch how I'm going to be scratching it and I'm going to be playing around with it. Most people do so many mapping of so many things on the keyboard, but I'm going to show you how you can minimize this over mapping of things on the keyboard so that you can actually get the professional scratching that you need. Let's have a look. The beating is going on. Let me select the track. Actually, there's DJ KYs on this side. This side too, we have what type of dance on this other deck. Just watch. Look at my hand. This is it. This is control button. This is my letter L. This letter L is attached to all there are two scratches I attached to this. We have the normal forward and backward scratch where you hear the sound. That is the normal baby scratch. Then you have the stab scratch, or better still, chip that you hear when somebody is scratching. Just watch. This is forward and backward scratch, forward and backward, forward, backward. So forward, backward. You are hearing the two sounds. Okay, let me use the chip now so that you are going to be hearing only one part of the sound. That is the forward scratch. Then the backward scratch will be mute. Just listen. You can see. So you now have a feel of what it looks like. Let's see the mapping and how I do it. When I'm using only this letter L, it gives me forward and backward scratch. Look at it. Then if I press the control button down and I'm using this same letter L again, it gives me only the chip sound. Look at it. Let me stop this one. Look at it, forward and backward. I'm not attaching it together with the control. Look at it. So we are going to see the mapping of the individual one. This is only the chip. This is the forward and backward. Let me use together with combination, and you are going to be hearing the chip that is just as good as the stab scratch. But the stab scratch, the beauty depends on whether you allow the volume, your bass to be high or your bass to be low. If your bass is high, you are going to be hearing the normal stab scratch. If you reduce the bass, it gives you that chip kind of sound. Look at it. See, you can see this is chip. Let me take it again. You can see the bass is down. So you see, if I pull the base full, so let's see the mapping. Let's go to our settings. First go to our settings here. We select options, sorry, controller. From the controller, let me remove this keyboard first. So you come down here. This is where you input your key. I showed you that I'm using letter L. This is letter L. So a careful look at the commands. Let me show you the details of the command so that you see. This is letter L. Let me zoom it. So this is default deck. At this point, I'm querying the machine. Is it playing? If it is not playing, then stop it. That is this first part. This part is not too necessary for you. Ignore it. This is where it matters the most. So you need to understand the concept of ternary operator, where you query the machine on a particular state to execute a particular action. I have a video in that regard. I won't be talking much on that, but let's see what it looks like here. So if it is playing, stop the machine. If it is not playing, then just go and query if our keyboard is down. That is the key, that is letter L that we selected is down. If it is down, the first part of this command where you see it is written in green will be executed. It's going to scratch forward plus 60 microseconds and then active level, that is the level of the active deck, that is the deck that is already playing, not the one you are scratching on, is going to be 90%. That means you are bringing the volume down small. That is for the deck that is playing, so that the scratch will be a bit louder, just the way you play around with the crossfader when you are scratching. Then we now have this column. This column is telling us that if we execute this first part, when our key, that is our letter L, we are pressing it down, then if you execute it again, the reverse of their same command, which is scratch minus 60 microseconds, that is moves the platter backward this time around 60 microseconds. In this case, we are not muting any of the element. Let me take it here. We are not muting any of the element. We are not muting the sound. So we are still maintaining, that is our normal forward and backward scratch. And then the active, that is return the volume to 100% again this time around. Let's have a feel. I've showed you already. Let's also have a feel of it again. Let me close it. In this case, we are not muting, we are not stop scratching, we are normal doing just our normal baby scratch. And the baby scratch is going to, the quality of the baby scratch is going to depend on how fast we press the key. So if you are pressing it slowly, if you are pressing it slowly, it's going to be a bit slow. Then if you are pressing it fast, look at it. So you see, so the faster we press it, the more faster the scratch will be. Look at it. You can see. Sorry, I'm not showing my hand. Let me show my hand so that you see it. See, forward, backward, forward, backward, forward, backward, forward, backward. So you see. So the combination of how you continue to press this one and leave will give you a very well fine-tuned scratch. You see. Then the combination of this one and your play, that is Q play or hot Q, will give you another better fine-tune. See. You need to understand how to use your fingers so that you don't go through the stress of moving one finger to another key. It gives you that flexibility, which is also applicable to playing the drum pad. That is why you see I can be able to play around with the drum pad like this. You see? Very simple. When you understand this, it gives you that ability to play around with it. Since it is an art, you are expressing yourself, you are entertaining the audience in the same process. So we have seen the normal baby scratch. Look at it, which I've showed you the script. Let's see the other one that takes care of muting the deck. So look at it now. So we have the same letter L in this case, but we are attaching Control L. So this case is a bit different. It's the same forward and backward scratch, but in this case we are fine-tuning it a bit so that we only hear the first part of this platter when we are pushing the turntable forward, and then when we are bringing it back we don't hear it. So we now have deck active level 0% while pressed. That means the deck that is active is going to be mute. 0% while press. Ignore this part. This part is not necessary, but this is where it starts. This down, you can see there is a question mark, which is a ternary operator. It's a querying if our key is going down, that is control letter L are down. These two keys, if the combination of these two is going down, it will default. It will select the default deck, that is the deck we selected, which is not active, which is not playing. It's going to conduct a backward scratch. It's going to move the platter forward 60 microseconds, and then the deck that is active, which is the deck that is playing, is going to take the level to 90%, which means it's going to bring the level to 90% down a bit. Ignore this other part. Then this is a column. This column at this point we take, ignore this one. This one is not too necessary. This is for video scratching, that is for video transitioning. So when we come here, we now have a column which is saying execute the other part of the command when the key is coming up. That means we now have our deck default go to _Q1 and then return the volume to 100%. That is what this code is saying. So this is it. The deck that is active, which you brought it back to 90% here, is going to be taken back to 100% at this point when the key is coming up. So that is why when you are doing that, you only hear the start scratch. You only hear the first part of the song. This is the part that does it. This forward scratch here and this one. So when you push forward, you move it back to the initial point, which is the Q.1. That is deck that you are scratching, back to Q.1. You can as well use backward scratch here, but the problem there is you are going to use backward scratch here. It means you are going to change this level volume to, you are going to attach another command that says the deck default should go back to level, should go back to 0%. That is how you do it. So, but in this case, to make it easier so that we maintain a stable volume, we use this particular command. So you can give it a try and see how beautiful it will look. So the act of DJ is actually interesting. It needs a lot of brain cracking system. So the scratch DNA is also there, which also gives you the ability to do that. But the problem with the scratch DNA there is your scratching is going to be attached to a particular pattern. You don't have that flexibility of playing around with your keys the way you want the sound to be. As well as then in the case of scratching, you do it on the turntable. You also use the same thing. You also do it on Virtual DJ. You can as well do it on Acid Pro. The Acid Pro also has its own technique with how you do it. But the most interesting aspect of this one is you can do it live while playing. You don't need so much technicality. But for the case of Acid Pro, you can't do it live when you are playing. You can see everyone has his own advantage and disadvantage. Then for the case of the normal turntable, you need a lot of practice. Even this one too, you need a lot of practice. You cannot grow overnight to start doing this. Then I also have one aspect. If you observe, look at, I'm going to do something now. Let's start the song. You will see that when the process of scratching is to give your audience a feel that another song is coming. Then sometimes if you do it, you can just start to the next track. That means you cut off the track that is playing and move to the other track, which is from deck A to deck B, or deck 1 to deck 2, or deck 2 to deck 2, or deck 1, irrespective of how you do it. I'm going to show you the mapping for that one, for the code that I use for that one too, so that you mute the sound of the track that is playing, then take over the other one that is not, that you are scratching with. Let's start again the way we start the other time. Look at it.
Sunday, go club, shy yo. DJ KY's George, yeah. Malia. DJ KY's George, Holy God. I'm still a big DJ.
Give them.
Yeah. I'm a tiny boy, cause I pull up in the mountain jazz on. I'm a summer kick out that boy. I got to come and look at it on. It's even my team name. First life when I look at it one. And I'm the guy jab on. Yeah, if you know any highway, here is the highway. Mark a highway. Them the highway. Oh, I'm the highway.
So let's continue. Let me show you the script I use to switch, that is drop the next song and ignore the other one. Let's see the script. It's also very simple. Let's have a look at it. There are so many ways of getting things done. You need to understand how the machine language works. It gives you an added advantage. That is the virtual DJ language. There are, each of the command are called verb. A verb is an action word, which is an action that you want to execute. So which is also a command. You are telling the device to do a particular thing. You first need to understand that there are two states of the machine. We have deck default and we have deck active. Deck default is the one that you selected. Look at it. If I click this deck, now I have selected this deck. It's my deck default. So any command I ask the machine to do is going to execute on this particular command rather than attaching a particular key to a particular deck. It's going to give you so much headache, but with this to make it easier for you to play around and move from one deck to another. So look at it. You can see it's selected. If I now come and select this one again, the same thing. You see? So I use my this tab to flip from one deck to another, move from one deck to another. Anytime I press it, leave one deck and go to the other. Then the deck active is the deck that is playing, which means it is active. So you stop the deck active and start the deck default. I don't know if the command is making sense for you now. Stop the deck that is active and start the deck default. If you understand this, then you're good to go. Let's see it in details. Let's see how to do that. We have in virtual DJ, we have micro mapping, we have macro mapping. The micro, which are the individual command. The combination of those small pieces to build up a standard command that will do a lot of action for you is referred to as macro. In this case, you have to query the machine on a particular state where you talk about ternary operators. So let's have a look at it. I have letter B. If you observe, I use it to stop the deck that is active and start another deck, which is the deck that is default. This is Q_play. Let's have a look at it. This is Q_play. Filter 50% while press. Ignore this part. But this Q_play is very important. This command is used to start the deck, to start playing. Let's see where the volume comes into play. And deck active level 0% while pressed. You can see it. It's telling the device that the deck that is active, the volume should go down to 0%. In this case, I'm not using the crossfade, I'm only using the volume leveler. You see it at this point, it brings down the volume of that. That is why whenever I press it, the deck that is playing, you will not hear anything coming from it. You will now hear the deck that is default. Let's continue with the command. Then at this point now, we now have deck default level 100%. So it means the deck that is default, that is the deck I've selected, should take the volume to 100%. Then I'm holding 300 microseconds. So it means this letter B, if I press it down and it start playing, if I hold it for up to 300 seconds, if I leave it, the deck that is playing, which is that is deck 1, will automatically stop playing. That is what this command does. So it's just an attachment. I also have letter I that does that for me again too. Look at it again. Look at it. You can see this one is a bit straightforward. We have deck active, stop, and then deck default, hot Q1, and deck default level 100%. Deck default level. These ones are level and they are just for level and a host of other balancing feature to turn off the deck that is playing and start the deck that is active, volume high 100%. But this is the actual command here. The actual command starts from here. The deck that is active should stop, and the deck that is default should start hot Q1. It must not be hot Q1. You can use any hot Q, depends on how you set your own command. So this is the main command that does that for me. Let's try this letter I so that you see it in action. I'm going to give it a try now. Let me close it. Once you are done inputting this command, you close and save. When you save, then you come here and close it. I'm sure you know how to identify your Q, that is the starting point. How to identify your settings. Look at it up here. You can see it. It is always at the top. You see it, virtual DJ. If you can't find it, you always use letter. Let's go back. Let me reduce the zoom so that you see what I'm saying. If you can't find it, there is always a shortcut key. The shortcut key is shift escalate. Shift escalate to close it. Shift escalate to bring it up. Then you want to close it, you come here and close it. That is all for now. So I'm sure you really learned something. Look at it. So let me start this other deck so that you see it. I'm going to start it. You see, I won't scratch, I'll just drop it. Just watch. This is letter I. Just see. Just stop it.
time, I'm not stingy. You go take my free. La 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 Friday. I want to spend my time with you now, time with you. Yeah, I want to spend my time with you now, time with you. Tap or dance please. DJ KY. DJ KY's girl.
Yeah. Go ahead, yeah. I'm a mucking with Tani Boy. Cause I pull up in the Mutton Jason. I pass my kick out that go. I go to the Mucking Card is on. Chip him at the same walk. Fast life in a Mukade go. And I'm at the Boga Jabo. You know, in your highway. You is the highway. Umaka highway. Chalumna highway. Oh, I'm the highway. To be on the highway. Yeah, trouble, whatever, highway. Look on the wipe.
No come the why me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, drop your comment, question, suggestion, share, as well as inform others about me. Yes, about this page. I'm sure you will really enjoy it and you've learned so much. So that I keep a date. If you are not clear, there are other videos there and there are more features coming in the future. That's why you have to subscribe to continue to enjoy it and get the best from me. Thank you very much for always being there. I still remember humble step.
This is on the tip on 100. Man, it's yellow man, it's hard on train. You know, on the highway. You is the highway. Umaka highway. Alumna highway. Oh, I'm the highway. To be on the highway. Yeah, trouble, whatever, highway. The banjo, why me? Jay,